my friend. Welcome to the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. And I know that it's summertime, but I was thinking back and reminiscing recently about my prom. Have you had prom yet? Have you been there? Have you gone? We actually had a thing called MORP for freshmen and sophomores at our school too, which if you haven't figured it out by now in the 3 seconds since you've heard it, is just prom spelled backwards. And these dances, these events. You've got homecoming coming up in the fall. Maybe you're already thinking about that. Who am I gonna ask to homecoming? But I was thinking about prom because I was thinking about the readings this week and my prom and how completely disappointing that particular event was. It wasn't that it was bad. It wasn't that I had a bad time. It's just the hype around it was so big. I was on the prom planning committee. We built a giant Eiffel Tower out of cardboard. It looked amazing, by the way, but there was all this build up to this event that really was a dance that people got dressed up for, and I had to pay like $150 for this tuxedo that didn't even fit me right. And when else in life do you wear a tuxedo? But people don't even wear tuxedos necessarily at weddings unless you're like the groom. We do this for prom. Anyway, I digress. Maybe you love prom, maybe you've been to prom, maybe you're super excited about prom. But just for me, I think about it, I'm like, man, I don't know. It didn't live up to the hype. You ever have moments like that just don't live up to the hype? I think we all do, right? We have moments where we're so excited and the thing happens and then the thing's over. And we're like, that was cool. Like maybe it's a new core memory, but it's kind of over. And then we feel empty. The readings this week are about emptiness and where we find true meaning. It starts off in the first reading from Ecclesiastes, the writer of whom is Koheleth. What a great and fantastic name for anybody. I hope when you have children someday you name your firstborn Koheleth and you think of me. Koheleth is the writer of Ecclesiastes, and this is actually a pretty dark, sad, emotional book. And he starts this particular section of the reading by saying, vanities of vanity. All things are vanity. Which sounds a little bit strange, but we got to go back to our Latin roots here for the word vanity, vanus, which means empty. So you could also translate this as empty of empties. Everything is empty. What Koheleth, our friend, is saying is that nothing in life really provides any meaning. Everything is sort of empty. He goes on to talk about how we all toil, we all work, we all strive. It produces anxiety. And what's it for? Later on, outside of this reading, he'll talk about how we all die. So what's the point, really? It's an interesting book to find in the Bible because it seems like such a downer. But it paints a picture of what this mortal life can offer us, which is events that promise big things and maybe in the moment seem amazing. But then afterwards, we're left wondering, why do I feel empty? Now let's think ahead a little bit to the gospel as Jesus is talking about where we store up treasure. Where do you keep your treasure? This is the challenge we have and the tension that exists in our life. There are so many worldly things that aren't bad. They're not bad things. Prom, not a bad thing. I mean, I guess it like anything, it can become a bad thing. Family, not a bad thing. Big moments and core memories, not a bad thing. But if we make those the biggest thing, or we put them up on this pedestal, that gets tough. For a lot of people, that even revolves around money. Money seems like this thing provides financial security, right? It allows us to buy the things that we want. Money, even in a way, helps a lot of us feel safe. And in our world today, money may be something you've been thinking about or your family's been thinking about a little bit more. But Jesus, as he speaks this parable in the gospel, really is targeting not money itself as something that is bad, but how we place our trust in it can be. Do you believe that this is going to save you? In fact, do you believe anything out there is going to save you other than Jesus? Because this is where the emptiness comes in. Jesus tells the parable of the man who has this bountiful harvest. He's rich now. He's going to build bigger barns to hold all of his grain, and he's going to be comfortable. And then the Lord looks at this situation and says, but tonight, your life's going to be demanded of you. Vanity of vanities. All things are vanity. It wound up being empty. To put it more colloquially, you can't take it with you, right? So what are we doing to store up treasure on this earth? St. Paul, in the second reading, talks about areas where we may be falling short of where our real treasure ought to be. Because our real reward, our real treasure, is in a relationship with Jesus Christ. Having the trust and the foundation in who God is and how God provides and how God loves us and takes care of us. And these are real things. This is reality. Is the greatest thing we could have. But St. Paul points out things that distort it, right? Immorality, impurity, lying to ourselves, lying to others. These are things that start to distort and warp our ability to trust in God, who is providential, who takes care of us. And it starts to force us to trust other things. St. Paul even goes on to say that the greed we experience is a form of idolatry, as all sin can be. Because when we get greedy, we look to something else that is not God to save us. Well, that's making an idol of something. This week, you have to ask yourself, where am I placing my trust? Where am I trying to store up wealth? And it doesn't have to be wealth in a sense of money or finances. It could be in our desire to be affirmed or to be esteemed or to have people praise us. We might be trying to store up wealth or be greedy in relationships. We might be finding ourselves impure or inflamed with anger and hoping that those things might be something we can grab onto to save us. But at the end of the day, money leaves us empty. Lust leaves us empty. Right? Just being angry about things and having a mindset that we're going to go and maybe through our anger affect change rather than having a righteous anger that's tempered, it sometimes leaves us empty, right? Vanity of vanities, all things are vanity, except for one thing. That relationship we have with the Lord, that is treasure that cannot be destroyed. What are you doing to grow in that this week? I want to challenge you to take time to step back and say, where am I attached to things? Where have I made an idol out of things in my life? Thinking that they'll save me, but they're ultimately just leaving me empty. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to cut those things out of your life, but you got to put it back in the right place. Where am I striving to grow in virtue? Where am I leaning into my faith every single day to, instead of choosing sin, I can choose good things? And where am I falling to some of those things specifically that St. Paul lists in his letter to the Colossians? And then lastly, have I spent time with Jesus today as my greatest treasure, as the best relationship, as the number one thing that I can be engaged with, as my true treasure? Because at the end of our lives, it all goes away. You can't take it with you, but there is a key that unlocks the next step, and that is Jesus Christ. So on this earth, put your trust there, and you will find great treasure in heaven. That's Summit for this week. I'll see you back here next week as we continue our roll through ordinary time on Summit.